I was a doctor, a woman of science, a firm believer in logic, reason, and the certainty of medicine. I had dedicated my life to understanding the intricate mechanisms of the human body, diagnosing illnesses, performing surgeries, and offering hope through what I believed to be the ultimate truth, modern science. Faith, that was for others, for those who needed comfort in the unknown. I had always viewed religion as a crutch, a tool for those unwilling to accept the stark reality of life and death. Death, to me, was simply the shutting down of a system, a biological process, nothing more. The heart stops, the brain ceases to function, and consciousness dissolves into nothingness. That was the truth I had built my entire existence upon. But everything I believed was about to be tested in a way I could never have imagined. The day had started like any other. I arrived early at the hospital, my white coat freshly pressed, my stethoscope slung around my neck. The hallways bustled with nurses, orderlies, and fellow physicians. It was a familiar rhythm, a dance I had done thousands of times, one foot in science, the other in the relentless demands of human suffering. I made my rounds, checked on post-op patients, and prepared for a complex surgical procedure scheduled for the afternoon. Nothing seemed out of place, and yet, beneath the surface of routine, something stirred, a feeling I couldn't quite shake. It had been lingering for weeks, a strange unease that gnawed at the edges of my thoughts, like a shadow I couldn't identify. I told myself it was fatigue, the toll of endless shifts and sleepless nights. I had been here before, overworked, stretched thin, but this felt different. Something was off. By mid-afternoon, I was in the operating room. The patient had been anesthetized, the surgical team stood ready, and the monitors pulsed with their steady rhythm. My hands moved with precision, my thoughts focused. This was my domain. I was in control. And then, in an instant, everything shattered. A sudden, searing pain exploded in my head, like lightning striking through my skull. My vision blurred, and the room tilted violently. My hands went numb. The scalpel slipped. The steady beep of the monitors grew distant. My knees buckled, collapsed. The cold, sterile floor met me with brutal force. Voices shouted my name. Hands gripped my shoulders. An alarm screamed. Everything became chaos, fragmented and fading. Then, nothing. Darkness. Silence. I should have ceased to exist. My heart had stopped. My brain had shut down. By every measure of science, I was dead. But I was still there, conscious, aware, hovering. I looked down and saw my body lying on the floor. My colleagues, the same ones I had worked alongside for years, were fighting to bring me back. Their faces were tense, their hands frantic, and I wasn't in my body anymore. I was watching it all unfold as an outsider. Panic surged through me. This couldn't be happening. It had to be a hallucination, a final trick of a dying brain. But it wasn't. The clarity of everything was unreal. The colors, the sounds, sharper, more vivid than I had ever known. I tried to move, to speak, to call out to the team around me. But I had no voice, no form. I was nothing but awareness, suspended, untethered. And the horrifying truth hit me. I was dead, yet I still existed. Every belief I had held about death, consciousness, the nature of life itself, it was all wrong. Utterly, catastrophically wrong. My heart clenched in dread. If I was wrong about this, what else had I been wrong about? Below me, the doctors continued their fight. The tension in the room thickened. Voices called for a defibrillator. Compressors pounded against my chest. The machines beeped with urgency. I should have felt reassured. Instead, a cold, creeping fear gripped me, because I wasn't alone. A presence stirred around me, unseen but palpable, watching, waiting, and I knew with a certainty beyond reason that something was coming, something I wasn't prepared for. Before we continue, I want to share something special with you. If this story is already touching your heart, if you feel that something greater is reaching out to you, make sure to subscribe to the channel. We are building a space of light, truth, and divine messages, and you don't want to miss what's coming next. Join our growing family. Your presence here means more than you know. The hospital room began to dissolve. slowly, like fog creeping in and swallowing the edges of reality. The beeping monitors, the shouting voices, the frantic hands, they became distant echoes, muffled by an unnatural silence. And then silence was all there was. Not the peaceful kind, but something heavy, suffocating, pressing down on me like a weight I couldn't escape. My thoughts screamed through the void, desperate for answers. Where was I? Why was this happening? A whisper broke the darkness. Then another. Low, eerie murmurs circled me. Too quiet to understand, yet close enough to chill me to the bone. I tried to see where they came from, but there was nothing, just blackness. Endless, formless blackness. And then I felt it. Presence. It was cold, ancient, and suffocating. The darkness wasn't empty. It was alive, watching me, and I was not welcome here. The whispers turned into hisses. No longer distant, they were inside me, wrapping around my soul. You thought you knew everything. A voice cold and mocking. You were certain there was nothing. Another voice, deeper, terrifying. And then I heard the worst voice of all. My own. There is no God. The words I had spoken countless times. Thrown back at me now like a curse. The darkness surged. Figures appeared. Shadowy, formless, reaching with fingers that seemed to stretch endlessly. They moved like smoke, yet I could feel them, touching, grasping. You mocked them. You led them away. Every moment of doubt, every arrogant dismissal of faith, every cold reassurance to a dying patient. They flooded back, weaponized against me. I wanted to fight, to escape, but I was powerless. I had no body, no strength, only the crushing realization that I was at the mercy of something far beyond my comprehension. And then the darkness pulled. A force, immense and inescapable, dragged me downward. The hospital, the doctors, my body, they were gone. The void yawned beneath me, an abyss with no end. I screamed, but no one heard me. And then I saw them, others, shadowy forms trapped below, writhing, screaming, faces twisted in terror and regret, reaching, clawing, but never escaping. A chilling truth dawned on me. I wasn't the first. I wasn't alone. I was one of them, unless something or someone saved me. Just as the darkness seemed ready to consume me completely, it happened. Light, a brilliance so pure, so overwhelming, it tore through the void like a sword. The shadows recoiled, shrieking in terror, releasing their grip on me. I felt it before I saw it. A presence of indescribable power, peace, and love. Then a voice. Enough. Spoken with authority. Not anger, not wrath. Just undeniable, unshakable command. The darkness vanished. I was lifted, pulled away from the abyss, and into the presence of the light. It wasn't just brightness, it was alive, pulsing with warmth, radiating peace. It filled every part of me, washing away the cold, the fear, the torment. And then I saw him. A figure stood before me, radiant in a way that defied human language. I knew who he was before he even spoke. Jesus, the very name I had spent my life denying. I had mocked him, debated his existence, told others he was a myth, and now I stood before him. His presence was overwhelming power in its purest form, but there was no hatred in his gaze, no condemnation, only sorrow. Sorrow for me. He didn't rage. He didn't accuse. He simply looked at me, and in that gaze, I saw it all: what I had done, who I had become, what I had lost, and what I was being offered. I felt exposed, not physically, but at the core of my being. Every lie, every denial, every act of arrogance. They stood between us, and yet, his love reached through them all. I had nothing to say. I opened my mouth to speak, to beg, to explain, but words failed me. And then he spoke. Your time is not yet over, but you must see the truth. His voice wasn't just sound. It was power. It resonated through me, shaking me to my soul. In it, I felt both judgment and mercy, authority and grace. I wasn't staying here, but before I returned, I would have to see everything. If this story has touched your heart, we want to do something special for you. Leave a like and comment your name and the city you're watching from, because in our next video, we'll send a personal greeting just for you. Imagine your name, your city, shared with thousands of people. A little moment of light, of recognition, just for you. Let's make this a community of love and connection. We can't wait to see your name there. Everything around me shifted in an instant. The radiant presence of Jesus remained, but the space around us expanded, stretching into what felt like eternity. It was as if time, space, and the physical world no longer mattered. I was outside of everything I had ever known, suspended in a reality that was pure truth. Before me, two realms emerged. On one side, light, not just brightness, but life itself. Colors I had never seen on Earth pulsed with energy. Gold, sapphire, emerald. Living hues that seemed to sing with a celestial harmony. The air itself carried a song, and I could feel it stir the very depths of my soul. In that realm, I saw people, not like we are here, burdened by pain, regret, or fear. Their faces radiated peace, not merely happiness, but eternal joy. They embraced each other with love that required no words, no explanations. They sang, they laughed, they worshipped, and I wept. The beauty was overwhelming. A love so pure, so consuming, that I felt I could never deserve it. Yet it drew me in, wrapping around me like a warm embrace. My soul longed to be part of that divine harmony. But then my gaze turned to the other side. Darkness, thick, heavy, suffocating. Not an absence of light, but a presence of torment, regret, and horror. I saw people there too, but they were screaming, their faces contorted in agony, their hands clawing at the air, their eyes filled with eternal regret. Some were reaching up as if begging for escape, but none came. Others sank deeper, pulled into a void that consumed everything. And I recognized them, not their names, but who they were. Scientists, professors, intellectuals, leaders, people who had once stood on pedestals of knowledge, people who had rejected God as I had. Asterisk, asterisk. Their voices became a haunting chorus. We were wrong. We thought we had time. We thought we were enlightened. I saw a man I had once admired, a brilliant mind who had lectured on the non-existence of God. Now he screamed, clawing at the ground, terror etched into every line of his face. A doctor like me, his eyes wide, frozen in eternal horror. Then, I saw others I hadn't expected. Monks, priests, religious scholars, people who had dedicated their lives to rituals and laws. And yet they too were there, crying out, "We followed the rules. We lived righteously. We did everything our religion told us." But they were lost. A sob rose in my throat. They had believed in religion, but they had never known Jesus. Jesus turned to me. His eyes were filled with sorrow, and in his voice was a pain that shattered me. "Now you must see why they are here." Terror and grief warred inside me. I wasn't ready, but I had no choice. If this journey is stirring your soul, we would love to connect with you. Please like this video and comment your name and city. In our next video, we want to give a special shout out to you. Imagine your name and city being spoken to thousands of people. A moment just for you, your minute of light. We can't wait to celebrate you. The scene changed. Suddenly, I was back in my own past, but not just as a spectator. I felt everything, every emotion, every thought, every word I had spoken. It was as if I was reliving it all, unable to turn away. And Jesus stood beside me, silent, watching. I saw myself young, proud, full of certainty. I had believed I was enlightened, that I had the answers, that science explained everything and faith was just ignorance disguised as comfort. I watched as I spoke to a dying patient, an elderly woman with terminal cancer. Her hand trembled in mine, her eyes shining with peace. "I'm not afraid," she had said softly. "I know where I'm going." And I had smiled, but inside, I pitied her. I thought she was clinging to a fairy tale. I told her gently that death was simply the end, that there was nothing beyond, that she would soon cease to exist, and there was nothing to fear. Now I saw her face again, But she wasn't in that place of light. She was in torment, screaming, lost, her trust in my words having led her away from truth, from salvation. The weight of what I had done crushed me. Tears streamed down my face. I had told her God wasn't real, and I had been wrong. More memories came. A young man on his deathbed, his mother pleading for him to accept Jesus. He had looked to me, desperate for guidance. I had shrugged. Truth doesn't change just because you want it to, I had said. Now I saw his face among the damned. Over and over, the memories played. Every cold dismissal, every arrogant rejection, every soul I had influenced. A nurse had tried to speak of her faith. I shut her down. A student had admired me. I led him away from God. I realized something horrific. It hadn't just been my soul at risk. I had led others down the same path. I turned to Jesus, broken. I didn't know, I whispered, but I had known. Somewhere deep inside, I had felt the pull, the whispers of truth. But I had silenced them. Jesus spoke, his voice both sorrowful and firm. You rejected me, but worse, you convinced others to reject me too. His words cut through me. I had spent my life destroying the very faith that could have saved me. And now I stood exposed before the one I had denied. The world shifted again. I was in a realm unlike any other, vast, shimmering with movement, filled with light and something that felt like knowledge itself. First, it seemed beautiful, but then I looked closer. It wasn't truth. It was deception. Before me stood great minds, scholars, scientists, intellectuals, men and women celebrated for their brilliance. Their faces radiated pride, but their eyes were empty. They reached for knowledge, but never found truth. They worshipped their own intellect, and among them I saw myself. I watched every moment where I trusted only in science, every time I laughed at faith, every time I explained away the mysteries of the universe. I had believed I was wise, but I had been blind. Jesus turned to me, his voice shaking the very air. Many believe they are wise, but they are blind. I fell to my knees. What have I done? Suddenly, I stood at the edge of an abyss, vast, endless, filled with screams and sorrow. Below, I saw them, souls who had denied God, now trapped. Scientists, professors, doctors, people like me. We were wrong. We thought we had time. And then I saw my own face, staring at me, screaming. Could have been me. Should have been me. I turned to Jesus, trembling. He looked at me with sorrow and mercy. You have seen the truth. And then the words that would change my life forever. Now you must choose. CTA, subscribe plus like. If this message has moved you, I want to ask you something from the heart. We don't earn money for doing this. We share these stories because we love it, because we believe in building a community of light and faith. Your like and subscription mean everything to us. Join us, walk with us, and let's continue to share this truth together. I stood trembling, my soul laid bare before the one I had denied. Now you must choose. Jesus' voice echoed through me, not as a demand, but as an invitation, one filled with mercy beyond understanding. I had seen the depths of deception, the reality of torment, and the beauty of truth, and I had been spared. I should have been lost, among those trapped in regret, consumed by darkness. I had led others away, mocked faith, denied the very existence of this moment. But I had been given a second chance. I fell to my knees before him, tears streaming from eyes I no longer had, but I felt them, deep and real. I understand, I whispered. I see now. I was blind, but I see. The weight of my arrogance, my failures, my denials. It could have crushed me. But in his gaze, I found not condemnation, but purpose, a mission. I had to return, to speak, to warn, to undo the lies I had spread, to shine a light into the darkness I once embraced. Everything around me pulsed with power. The realms of torment, the realm of light. They began to fade, but their memory was etched into me, like fire on my soul. I would never forget. Jesus spoke again, his words filled with divine authority. You must tell them. Time is short. Many are deceived. You were spared to awaken the sleeping. His words became light, filling me, lifting me. I felt myself being drawn upward, carried not by force, but by grace. I was leaving. The last thing I saw was his face. Not just a savior, not just a king, but love itself. Then a jolt. Agony tore through my chest. Blinding light turned to blinding pain. I gasped. A ragged, choking breath, and my eyes flew open. The sterile white ceiling of the hospital swam into focus, blinding under fluorescent lights. I was back. The room was chaos. Doctors, nurses, monitors screaming, voices calling my name. One shouted, "We've got her!" Another burst into tears. I had returned, but I was not the same. As they tended to me, I could barely speak. I wept, trembling, gripping the hands of those around me, desperate to tell them what I had seen. But how could I put it into words? How could I explain that everything I had believed was a lie? The truth had consumed me, and now it had become my mission. Days passed. My recovery was slow, but every moment was clear. Every breath a gift. Every heartbeat a reminder of the mercy I had been shown. And now I speak to you. I was a woman of science, a skeptic, a denier. I believed death was the end. I was wrong. There is more, infinitely more, and his name is Jesus. He is real. He is waiting, and he loves you beyond anything you can comprehend. I was sent back for a reason, to tell you, do not wait. Do not ignore the whisper in your soul. Do not let pride steal your eternity. There is still time, but not much. The war for your soul is real. I've seen it. I felt it. And now you must choose. If you're still here, I know this story spoke to you. I want to personally invite you to continue this journey with us. The next video will be revealing. It holds a message that could change everything in your life. Just click the video on the screen and step into the light. Your life is not an accident. You're here for a reason. We'll see you there.